There's a place where the living and the dead trade whispers.
Where shadows don't just follow, they watch.
Where one thin barrier holds back what waits on the other side.
You've stepped into
The
veil
veil
between. What you're about to hear drifts between fact, belief, and the unknown. The veil between is for entertainment purposes only.
Our stories, research, and experiences are our own, not medical, legal, or professional advice.
So step carefully, and remember, the choice to believe is always yours.
Hello and welcome to the Veil Between podcast. This is our first episode.
Inaugural episode, yes.
Exciting.
And just in time for spooky season 2. What a perfect time to start a spooky show during spooky season.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm dressed for the occasion. Well, I actually don't want to dress like this, folks. That's something y'all need to know. I'm just kidding. I just really wanted to get festive for the spooky season and start the show with a bang.
Halloween is our favorite holiday.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Good time for business, at least.
What do you do for Halloween? You like to go to haunted houses?
Yeah, haunted houses.
It's like the maze one.
Things like that. Yeah, with the mazes. I know they're people kind of think they're dorky, but I have fun with those. But I like to go around the neighborhood and hand out candy to the local families and stuff like that. I do little packages and things like that. Put together candy, spook toys, and then just deliver to them. And sometimes I give out candy, or sometimes I'm just busy watching horror movies,
Yeah.
It's tied up.
So you like to go to the maze ones, like the fun ones. I go to the spooky. I go to the real.
You go real dude.
I go to the real haunted houses and do like investigations. Try to find something, try to capture something on camera.
That's right. You were ghost hunting. What was it, a year or two ago?
I try to do it like every year. I think the last one was a few years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so we are your hosts. I'm Danica Simone.
And I am Quintero. And for all those who speak American, Guy Quintero. I am a classically trained magician, demonologist, horror author, and alchemist, among other things. That's what pertains to this subject matter. And I write a series called the Unbelief Studying Agency series. It's a lot of fun. It's Resident Evil meets X-Files meets Supernatural, you would say, and Tom Clancy for Rainbow Six. So I like to incorporate a lot of my love for the occult, my love for horror and the supernatural, and with my military combat experience as well. Yeah, that's I think it's just it for me, right?
Yep. And I'm Danica Simone. I am a psychic empath. I have been, I got my start as a tarot reader, but I've always seen spirits and everything ever since I was young. But like professionally, I started with my clients with just tarot reading. And then from there, I picked up other knowledge and experience, which led me to providing house cleansings and teaching psychic self-defense for my clients.
And we are 2/3 of the core members for our commons cleansing teams that go in and help people deal with supernatural pest control, dealing with demonic infestations, apparitions, and handling psychic attacks.
Wait, what's the third?
Oh, that's Nina.
Our mascot?
That's got my familiar.
Yeah, that's so funny. Okay, so we just learned to start this podcast because we have in our field and also in our personal interests, we have a lot of crazy, in-depth, random discussions all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We thought that we should just record it and share it with other people and let other people join the conversation, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone has a story, everyone has an experience, and I think it's only natural to want to dive deep and learn about it and know what to do about it,
And that's because there's a plethora of, well, I shouldn't even say a plethora, there's infinite information when it comes to this world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always wary of individuals who try to say they know everything or pretend like they know everything, because it's impossible I've forgotten the information that I currently know right now. So it's impossible to completely grasp this world. It's so vast. There's so much information. It's always great to just hear from other people. I know you as well, but we like to consider ourselves an empty vessel, and we take in a lot of the information from other people, learn, what they're experiencing, because what we've discovered in our time helping people deal with supernatural is that each case is different. There is no case that is exactly like the previous ones. While there are some similarities, the there's an infinite number of demonic nomenclatures that you have to combat in order to help people cleanse their.
I think that most people get their information or, what they assume, their assumptions on metaphysical and esoteric things, hauntings, demonic possessions, etc. They get that from the movies or maybe even books, but like movies, TV shows and stuff like that. And I think a lot of it is obviously it's inaccurate, right?
Some of it.
Yeah. Like I think the overall generality of it is point.
It's fair.
You know what I mean? But then I think that people think, oh, look, this is what possession looks like.
Yeah.
It looks like people climbing up walls. And that's not, that can happen, but that's extremely, extremely rare. But it's in every movie. I feel like people think that this is just common. I think that it's easy to assume that paranormal looks a certain way because of how it's portrayed in the movies and in TV. And so when things actually do happen, it's so subtle. When it starts, it's so subtle that it's so easy to just brush it off like, oh, maybe that was the dog scratching at the door. Or, you know what I mean? Or, oh, that was the sound of the wind on the window or something. You know what I mean? I think it's so subtle that it's easy to brush it off as a trick of mind. Oh, I just saw something out of the corner of my mind, or out of the corner of my eye, but it wasn't really there. You know what I mean? As because what you are familiar with is what you've seen on TV and the movies, and so you think, oh, that there's no way that's what's happening.
Yeah, and that's why they have this caveat. The things you see on television and the movies is usually because Hollywood's trying to put butts in seats, trying to sell tickets, get viewers, entertain people. But those are the most extreme examples if you ever read through what's his name, Father Gabriel Borf's work, and he talks about demonic possession. You're absolutely right. It's subtle. It starts extremely subtle, and then continues subtle for a very long time because most of the demonic entities actually that don't want to be discovered. So, I mean, 9 times out of 10, we show up to cleanse someone's home. It's quiet. It's super quiet. You can hear a pin drop. Or usually our clients end up telling us, yeah, it's calmed down. But then you start explaining to us, he freaks out and lays there night or something. And sometimes we show up at night and super quiet. Nothing's happening. And the clients usually end up telling us, normally it's going chaotic. There's chaos and it's unfolding all the time. They're constantly terrified. They can't sleep at night. And then we show up and suddenly it's quiet. It's peaceful, it's tranquil, the energy's calm. That's because they like to stay under the radar. So what you see with the vomiting and the climbing up the walls, that is an extremely rare cases that Hollywood tries to present as a norm. It's actually not as glamorous as it looks.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's boring.
Yeah, a lot of it's crappy looking books.
I also feel like when we go into to do a cleansing in the client's house, they're watching us, and I think they're like, "That's it. That's all you're gonna do." Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's not violent. Like, it's not. You know what I mean? They start shaking.
Like the Conjuring. Yeah.
So I'm like, I have that in the back of my mind. Like, are we disappointing them?
It's pretty underwhelming. I would imagine it's pretty underwhelming until they get that first night of sleep and nothing happens, and it's like, oh,
thank God. Yeah, you get that like that weight off of you. You can finally breathe. Yeah, I can tell you from a personal experience, and maybe this will go into our introductions, like how we got into the into the paranormal and what we do and why we do it. I have had a personal experience. Like I said, I've always had experiences and I've always seen spirit, but I had never had anything negative happen to me. So I was kind of just floating along, being like, this is so fun. I have spirits around me. Like, these are my friends. That sounds awful. But yeah, no, like I was comfortable with them. But it wasn't until I was in college and I was attacked for the first time by an entity. And let me tell you, that is not normal. And like, that's not our everyday life. And it's not something that we expect or we're ready for. I think when we watch TV or movies, we think, oh, I wouldn't have a problem handling this. If this happened to me, this is how I would handle it. Like, you know what I mean? You have a little plan. But when it happens to you for the first time, it doesn't matter how many movies you've seen or how many shows you've seen, you are not prepared.
Everyone thinks they're tough until they can't move.
Yeah. And while it's not crazy necessarily, crazy things falling off the walls or chairs moving, or you know what I mean, while it's not crazy like that, when it does happen to you, especially if you end up getting encountered with sleep paralysis,
Yeah.
and you're literally stuck in your body and you're trapped and you can't move, but you're awake and you're alert. Maybe you're lucky enough. I don't know if that's lucky enough, but maybe you're lucky enough to have your eyes open. Or, oh my God, if your eyes are closed, you can't open your eyes. I don't know, you can go off of this like what you hear or smell. That's terrifying. I think that's probably the scariest thing I have ever encountered, and probably would ever encounter. Like I feel like not being able to control your body and defend yourself is the scariest thing.
That's what they ask most of our clients say.
Yeah.
I've faced sleep paralysis once, and yeah, it was terrifying, very terrifying. Being in that situation is a real eye opener because you don't realize how powerless you are until you can't use the faculties that you're normally used to using.
Yeah.
And then you see someone in the corner of your eye moving, and you know they're not. Then I'm actually there, the material.
Yeah.
You're like, what the heck is that? So many of our clients have told us the same thing.
Yeah. What actually led to the founding of Arcana District was in college. One day I was laying on the couch for a nap, and I heard, like right as I was falling asleep, like right at the edge of being awake and fully asleep, I heard a humming or buzzing sound, and it was like a little ways away. And then I was like, oh, that's, I just remember thinking in my head, oh, that's a weird sound. Like there's something weird going on. And as I thought that, the sound flew at me and went right into my ear and paralyzed me. Like it like hit me, and I don't know, went straight to my spine or something. Like I felt it, and then it was like vibrating my entire body. And I think it's like the frequency. I think that is how it attacks. Like that's my experience. And from people I've spoken to, they've corroborated that's what they felt. And so the sound waves and the frequency like pierced into my ear and like went down my spine. And I just felt my entire body like vibrating, and I couldn't move.
Would you say that is was an attack on your nervous system?
I mean, I think that is what causes or creates like that's the creates the paralysis. Yeah,
Because I
that's
remember
the next.
when I was in the service, we worked the frequencies that I couldn't. There was experimental weapons that were being utilized in the Iraq War, and my unit was one of the first ones to get it. And it was a large radar dish that was attached to the Humvee, and it was able to set up a sonic frequency that would cause individuals to just fall over or just cause them to start foaming at the mouth, vomiting, getting nauseous, to repel them in a non-lethal manner. So it sounds very similar to sleep paralysis, and I'm wondering if maybe the entities, demonic apparitions that are attacking individuals are utilizing a similar frequency to cause sleep paralysis. Maybe, but definitely a more concentrated variant than the one we've been utilizing under or weaponization and testing.
Wow. That's the first time I've heard of that. That's crazy.
Because the nervous system is just a series of electrical currents.
Yeah.
But that's really what causes it to function. A series of electrical currents, and those electrical currents can be disturbed by another frequency.
Like it's interrupting frequency.
Yes.
Something that is like a blocker,
Something that blocks it, or maybe even something that could, because you don't have to, in order to disrupt a frequency or an electrical current, you don't necessarily have to block it. What you could do is you could overcharge it, or you could slow it down. So that would cause, in this case,
disruption.
That would cause disruption. In this case, I think it's called sleep paralysis, like these
Slowing it down.
And that's what slowing it down.
That makes sense. Yeah. Could you get more sluggish? But yeah, it was terrifying, especially coming from my background where paranormal was not new. It wasn't a no to me. And so I was more knowledgeable than the average person, right? And I was still terrified because I don't think there's, like I said, I don't think there's anything more scary than not being able to control your body and protect yourself, defend yourself, you know? So what happened was at that moment, I was freaking out and all I could do was I had my grandmother, when I was little, she would always tell me, because my gifts run in the family. So she would always tell me if anything ever happens, if anything ever attacks you, if anything negative ever happens, pray. And so the first thing that popped into my mind was pray. So I prayed the Our Father and I just kept like on repeat and on repeat. And then, you know, that wasn't really working. I felt better. I felt a little bit better, but I still couldn't move. And I still felt like I was being drained. Like that vibrating feeling felt like it was sucking out the energy of, you know, out of my body. Like I was draining and I was like falling into like a pit, an endless void of sleep. It did not feel good. It did not feel like a natural, like falling into sleep. It felt like I was being like knocked out kind of. And so I was scared because I was like, what is this going to do to me when I'm unconscious? You know what I mean? So I was like, the prayer isn't really working. I'm not free. So what I did was I literally just concentrated on screaming. I was like, if I can scream, like I'll be able to control something. Like, because I couldn't even make a sound. My eyes were closed. But in that moment of such intense fear, again, this was something that never happened before to me, but in that moment of such intense fear, my eyes were closed. I couldn't open my eyes. I willed myself to see, and my third eye like blasted open and I could see everything. And I actually saw the entity, and it looked like a heat signature, you know, like all the different colors, like what do you call it? Like infrared or something like that. I think that's, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
Yeah, but kind of like the Predator, where it was like you could see the heat signatures, and so it was like a male humanoid figure, and it was knelt next to me, like because I was on the couch, and it was like knelt next to me, and it was like hovering over me, like looking down on me, and it had a smile on its face, and like a wicked grin smirk. And that scared me even more. And I was like, oh my God. So there is something here. So like it was tangible. I could see it with my third eye. And then at that moment, I was like, okay, if I can scream, like maybe I'll scare it away. But I felt like if I can scream and get that function to work, then I can get up. You know, like I just knew that was like the first step. Like I just have to scream. So I focused all my energy, like all my anger into just screaming it. And it felt like it took forever, but probably took like 30 seconds, maybe this thing. But it felt like eternity. It felt like it was hours. And then as soon as I got the scream out, I like launched. I like jumped off the couch and I just kept screaming, and the scream got louder and louder. And I still, even though my eyes were open, I still saw with my third eye. It was kind of like seeing them both kind of overlaid, and I saw the thing shoot out, and it was gone. And I was like, oh my God. And I was so scared, and I was shaking. I didn't know what to do. I'm so angry. I didn't even cry because I was so angry, but I am a crier, so I'm surprised I didn't cry. But I was so angry, and I freaked out, and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? And I think in that moment, I was like, okay, I scared it off. It's gone. But then the next time I fell asleep, it came right back and it did it again. And it was always right at that moment of right as you're falling asleep. And it would attack like immediately. I would hear the buzzing. I'd get paralyzed. And I was like, oh no, not again. And then I think at that time, when it happened the second time, each time I got faster. Each time I got faster at fighting it off and being with somebody and willing it away. But I was so exhausted. And I was like, okay, obviously this is coming back. So at that point, I was like, okay, I was raised Roman Catholic. So I reached out to the local priest. They wouldn't talk to me. Like, they were like, yeah, they just brushed me off. They were like, yeah, that doesn't sound like you're fine. Like, that's not real. Which really bothered me because I was like, you guys are the ones that do the whole exorcisms. How can you tell me that what I'm experiencing isn't real?
And that's what Father Gabriel North warns about, is that the church is no longer taking these these incidents seriously anymore. There's very few practicing exorcists left. And most of them think it's just superstition, and people come to them for help. They simply dismiss them.
Yeah, it's like they don't even believe their own history. They don't even believe their own.
A lot of Christians have lost their way, and it seems like Christianity was purposely, I would say, kneecapped when it came to spirituality. They're purposely kneecapped on it, and it's truncated their understanding of the world, causing they're blind now. And I think it's definitely goes back to the Council of Nicaea, where with a lot of Christian theology and a lot of books from the Bible that would actually teach you how to combat stuff like this. And the conspiracy theorist in me does not believe that that's a coincidence. But I apologize for going ahead.
Okay, so then I was really upset. I was really upset about that they wouldn't help me. I was like, okay, I was like, this is my history. This is my faith. This is the way I was raised. My nonna always told me, pray, go to church, seek out the priests. They will help you. And so I was completely lost. I was like, I don't know what else to do. And so then I was like, well, I remember the show Ghost Hunters. That's why it was like, because this was the years ago. They were like, I think the first ones, the OG ones, to have a TV show and stuff. And so I was like, and I knew that like various ghost hunter like groups, there's like chapters in every city or state or whatever. So I looked up just who was around, and then I reached out to the local paranormal investigators, and I called them and I was like, this is what's going on. Can you help me? And the guy was like, yeah. He was like, I could tell he was like nervous, because he was like, yeah, that's like too hot for us. Like, that's not what we do. We don't help people. We just record activity and that's it. And I'm like, oh, that was a huge red flag. I was like, okay, so you don't actually do anything.
They don't have it.
You have no clue. And then he was like, but we do have a rabbi that you can talk to. And I was like, what is a rabbi? What is a rabbi going to do for me?
Well, I mean, it would depend if he's a rabbi that practices the Kabbalistic mysticism. It'd be very useful. But once again, that's as rare as an exorcist. I don't know.
So they were like, we'll get the rabbi to reach out to you. And so they took my information down, and I didn't have a direct line to them. So one day, randomly, I got a call from the rabbi, and she told me that I was crazy. She said, everything you're telling me sounds like you're having a psychotic break. You need to be institutionalized. And I started crying. I was so distraught. I was like, I'm not getting help anywhere. No one is helping me. So, so I hung up. I was like, okay, gotta go. Like, this conversation's over. And I was just out of my mind. I was at that point, I started questioning myself. I was like, am I crazy? Because I was trying to reason it, because as much as I have these experiences in the paranormal, I also have a very rational brain. And I think I am naturally skeptic. Like, if this wasn't happening to me, I don't know that I believe it. I want to believe it. I would take somebody's story at face value. And like, there's no way they're making up, but I wouldn't, you know what I mean? I wouldn't know how to I wouldn't be like solidified, like, oh, this really happened. You know what I mean? I would just be like, this is a story I heard, but I wouldn't call it fact. Like, this actually happened, so I'm very skeptical. So in the back of my mind, I'm like trying to reason it away. Like, I feel like any normal person would too, right? And again, this is how it's so easy to discredit what's happening or like brush it aside. Like, it's not really, because we want to reason it out. So I was thinking, am I having a seizure? Am I having seizures because of the shaking? I was like, maybe I'm having a seizure and I don't realize it. Like, I'm having a nightmare. I'm in sleep and I'm having a seizure. That's why I feel the shaking, like rattling in my bones. I feel it. And so I was like, okay, am I having seizures or am I crazy? Am I having a psychotic break? Like, what is, and by the time you know, I mean, this, and it just kept happening to a point where I think this was like a 3-month period. And I was getting so scared of falling asleep at night, like sleeping at night, that I actually slipped my schedule. I'd be awake all night because I'd be so scared to go to sleep. And then I would fall asleep during the day. But that didn't save me from being attacked when I did eventually fall asleep. But it was, I guess to me, it was better to fall asleep during the day than at night. I mean, I've never been one to be scared of the dark, but I just couldn't face it. I couldn't face it in the dark. It was just a whole other level that I just could not take it to. You know what I mean? It had to be during the days.
There's this old saying in the metaphysical world where it goes, fear is a good motivator. A lot of people are initially, all of our clients initially start off as skeptics.
Yeah.
This isn't happening, but by the time we're usually helping them deal with the situation, it's gone full blown. Because like you said earlier, it starts very subtle.
Mhm.
And it makes you question, right? Is this just a coincidence? Am I losing it? And then eventually you realize, no, I'm very lucid. I'm very aware of what's happening right now. And it is definitely occurring.
Mhm. Yeah. So by that point, I think like maybe a few weeks had gone by.
Weeks?
Well, no, well, the whole experience lasted about 3 months. So I'd say probably 2 months in.
So
Or yeah, it's been a while. It was a while.
my question is, like, how were you feeling with weeks of messed up sleep?
That's why I started to question my sanity,
Yeah.
because I was so sleep deprived. I started thinking, like, okay, I'm delusional. I'm like, I just, if
You're frustrated.
I don't know,
Sorry.
have you ever gone like 3 months without restful sleep? But probably being in the military, right?
Yeah, I have. But
Have you ever been to the point where like you're so distraught because every time you fall asleep, you are attacked in your sleep every single time. For 3 months straight, you are sleep deprived because it's not restful sleep. Because as soon as you wake up, you're like, oh my God, I gotta stay awake. And you fight going to sleep. So 3 months, my brain started to fall apart. Like I've heard, like, if you don't get sleep within a certain amount of time, I don't know how long. If you go without sleep for a long time, you can literally die from that. Like your brain will shut down. It doesn't know how to respond. And I think I was at that point, but I was literally questioning my sanity. I was like, my brain is playing tricks on me. I was trying to rationalize in any way I could.
the lack of sleep is very devastating on the mind and the body. But the difference between myself and all the badass reconnaissance soldiers that I have the privilege of serving with is that we're conditioned for it.
Yeah.
We're conditioned for the hardships of dealing with that. I can't imagine being a civilian. You were a stay-at-home wife at the time?
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine being a stay-at-home wife, having to endure something like that. You're not trained to deal with that.
Yeah.
So, especially in being a skeptic and turning around being a skeptic. So
Yeah.
now there's so much that there's so many factors you have to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that couldn't have been easy.
Yeah. So I was at my breaking point. I honestly had no idea what I was going to do. No one would help me. I couldn't get help from anybody. And as you said, I was the stay-at-home wife. At that time, I was actually newlywed. So it was a brand new relationship. And I got married really fast. Like it was a very fast courtship. Pretty much right after we got married, he was deployed to Iraq. So I was truly alone for the first time because I grew up with a big family and we got stationed out of state. So I didn't know anybody. I didn't have a chance to really get to know too many people. And I was alone. I didn't have anyone to reach out to.
You really had no support network.
I had no support. And so I was just distraught. I hadn't heard from my husband because like literally he had just left break. The attacks happened. I think the attacks started happening 1 or maybe 2 weeks after he left. And so I know that there's like travel time that takes to get from, to get to, how do you say it?
In country.
In country. And then before anyone can communicate with you, like there's no communication. And so finally he called me and I was just so distraught and I just broke down crying. And I was like, I never told him when we were dating, like that I had experience with spirits, and that that I could see things, and things were around me all the time. I never, I never mentioned it. We were too busy for that. Like there wasn't enough time to talk about, like, get into all these things. And also, it kind of felt like the way I was raised by my family, my mom and my grandmother in particular, they were like, you can talk to us about what's going on. You can talk to us about the things that you see and stuff, but don't ever bring it up outside. Don't ever talk about it, because people will act like you're crazy, or that they'll like be really mean to you later in life. When I finally put myself out there and started like I said, started with the tarot reading, I got really nasty looks. I got really nasty comments, snide comments. People were like, I'm talking like coworkers, even friends. They were so, oh, even family. They were so mean to me. They tore me down so bad. I actually had family members tell me that I was doing the devil's work. Like tarot reading is a sin, and it's the devil's work, and it only brings the devil in, and it's goes against everything God says. So anyway, that's why I hadn't mentioned it. And so he called and he was like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And blah, blah. And I just lost it, and I just started crying, and I was like hysterical. I think I was a hysterical wife. And he was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "Okay, you're not going to believe me. You're not going to believe me when I tell you this." And I explained everything that's happening. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm going crazy. I'm losing my mind. I don't know what to do. And he's like, okay, it's okay. Calm down, calm down, calm down. I need you to go to our office and grab this book. I need you to grab this book on the shelf and go to this chapter. And yeah, it was this book, Vampires. Yeah. And so I turned to the chapter he specifically said, and I started reading it, and I started crying again. Like, after we got off the phone, I was like, okay, I've sat down. It was literally everything that they said in that chapter, that specific chapter on psychic vampires. It was a psychic vampire. Yes, they are real. Vampires are real. So this chapter was on psychic vampires, and everything that was described was everything. It was like verbatim. It was like I could have written it myself if I could find the words to describe it.
Yeah.
It was exactly what I was experiencing, and I just started crying because I finally felt recognized. Yeah, yeah, it was like that release of the tension. It was that I could finally, it was a relief to feel like I'm not alone. Okay, this is known to happen. Like, I'm not crazy, like you said. And the chapter, it had a ritual, cleansing ritual that you had to do to cleanse your body, purify your body and spirit. And then a meditation to create a shield to protect yourself.
Psychic shield. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so I remember, so I did it. I did the whole thing, did the whole ritual. I felt like I had never, like, I know that there's people like you're a magician, you do the meditations. I had never done meditation. I didn't know anything. So this was very foreign to me. And I also kind of felt like it was the game, like I was playing pretend or something. Like I was like, people, if anyone sees me, they're gonna think I'm crazy. Like doing this meditation, doing this ritual, like this. It was like literally soaking in baths, like with like herbs and like salt, and it was a whole thing. I'm not. I don't come from like a Wicca background or anything like that, so I'm not used to rituals. No, everything that I've experienced was just I see things. I see things, and I've never had to do anything. They're just there. Like I've never had to do a ritual or anything like that. So I was very out of my element, and I also was afraid that I would suddenly think I was like crazy. But I mean, I felt like I was already crazy. So I didn't really have anything to lose.
What do I have to lose?
I didn't have anything to lose. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna try it. So then, so I did the ritual, and I went to sleep, because the ritual is to do it right before you go to sleep. So then I went to sleep, and it was nighttime. I was like, okay, this is the first time I'm going to go to sleep at night. I was like, take a chance. I'm like, all right, let's do this. And the craziest thing happened. As soon as I fell asleep, as soon as it would normally attack me, I heard this loud banging, like on metal, like where I had put my shield. Because I envisioned that my shield was metal. And I heard, it sounded like somebody was banging on like a loud metal door, like a big metal door, and it was just boom, 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 and it was right above me, right above my bed, like towards the ceiling, and I felt the um the emotional frequency of it, of the thing, and I could feel that it was like taunting me and saying, "Okay, just know I'm here. I'm here waiting." Like, which also scared me because I was like, "Okay, I didn't banish it. I didn't banish it. I just blocked it from being able to attack me." So it was still there, and I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Okay, well, at least I can sleep." So I fell asleep, and I was like, "Okay." And so I think a week went by, and I finally was able to sleep, and I let my guards down, and like a week went by, and I was finally, it stopped banging. It only banged the one time. So I think I'm just, ignorance is bliss, and I think I just felt like I was okay then. And a week went by, and I got tapped again.
Oof.
And that's when I learned, oh, it's not like, again, like I think with like mediums and stuff, the shows, the TV shows and everything, they're like, oh, just stage and
Want it done.
it's gone and it's gone forever. And I learned the hard way, it is not gone. It is not a one and done practice. You don't just protect yourself one time for your gut. You have to routinely do it, like brushing teeth, like taking a shower, like cleaning your house, doing the dishes, right? Doing the dishes, they get dirty, you use them and you have to clean them again, like, so the energy just from going outside, being around people, bringing that energy in, you're constantly like polluting energetically your house, and your house should be your sanctuary, right? So it should be the one place where you're safe, right?
Lawyer.
Like physically from like burglars, and then also spiritually from these types of attacks. So it was a very, very hard lesson learned. And so I realized, okay, about every 5 days I have to reinforce the shield and make sure it's up. And then after a while I learned other things about sage and frankincense and myrrh and other things. And that is what finally got it out of the house. I mean, what I do, this was a long journey. I had to do a lot of research to figure out what it was. I had to do a lot of research on self-defense because I never wanted to be caught off guard again. I never wanted to feel vulnerable again. And you know what? It was a wake-up call that everyone I reached out to, everyone I tried to get to help me, no one helped me. And it again reinforced that I have to protect myself because no one's going to help me.
There's a lot of people out there suffering in silence.
And I don't want anyone, now that I have the knowledge and I have the ability to help people, I never want anyone to feel as lost and scared and alone as I did.
It's all
Yeah. And like I said, for me, I can only imagine how much worse it is for any other person where the supernatural is not a part of their life. You know what I mean? Like,
no resources.
yeah, I had a little bit of knowledge, but I feel like there was a little buffer where I feel like the terror would have been even worse if I was a full skeptic, didn't believe in the paranormal, didn't believe in ghosts, didn't believe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it literally came from out of nowhere. I can only imagine how much more terrifying that is. And then not even knowing who to turn to. Or you see these mediums. Everyone has a TV show nowadays. You see these mediums on TV. They claim to help people. You see these ghost hunters that they claim to be helping people, but really they're just documenting stuff. They just want to catch cool stuff on camera.
And most of them just ended up riling up the spirits even more.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Leaving people in worse situation.
They make it worse because you see these shows and they purposely antagonize spirits, so they rile them up because they want to get the action caught on camera.
You don't have to edit that out. That's hilarious.
Where were we? What were we talking about?
I don't remember.
Well, we're talking about the ghost hunters.
Ghost hunters run people up. Yeah.
They antagonize them.
Yeah, they do.
They antagonize the spirits So literally, and then they go, oh, well, thanks for having us. Bye. So those poor people living there, they just made it worse. And they just leave them there with no help. So that's why I founded Arcana District, and it is solely focused on
Actually,
doing house cleansings, personal cleansings, like spiritual cleansings, removing attachments, teaching. Not only do we go in, but we teach them how to do it. We have them do it with us, the client. We have them do it with us, all the steps. And then we even give them like a printout on like a pamphlet, I think a handbook on what to do after the fact, because we teach them, we tell them like, this is not over. Like you will get a reprieve, a temporary reprieve, because we cleansed it and got it out of the house. But now you have to maintain it to keep it out, because it will come back. And we can talk about stories we've encountered during our, in our investigation, because I've had things where, like with me, they announce we're still here. We may be outside, but we're waiting. We're waiting for your defenses to go down, and we'll be right back.
you're dealing with beings that are very, very old in some cases, that have a lot of patience and nothing else to do with their time.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a good story. People need to hear about it.
Yeah.
Seeing is believing, and experience is the best teacher.
Mhm.
It really is.
Honestly, I never pictured this for my life. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I definitely never pictured I would be fighting entities. Like, if you had asked me when I was younger, going to college, like, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I would have never said this. I'd have been like, yeah, I see experience. Like, they were always part of my life, but I never would have been like, I'm a paranormal, what do you call it? Paranormal pest control.
Pest control.
Yeah, I teach psychic self-defense. I teach people how to defend themselves. They should not rely on anyone to protect them. You know what I mean? They should have, I feel like these shows and everything, like if you call somebody in, a specialist, a shaman, we know about shamans, or a medium, or something, they'll say to the place, but then they'll leave. And they won't tell you. They'll be like, your house is clear. Your house is clean. And then they'll leave. And they don't tell you, oh, you have to maintain this. It will come back.
And a lot of them don't actually practice the arcane preparatory phases that are required to utilize these agents properly. So that's another thing. A lot of people think they could, just burn it, and or just do this or do that. But there's just preparatory phases and preparatory training that's required in order to actually successfully utilize arcane tools.
Yeah. Well, so that's my story. So how did you get into the paranormal? Like, what started your journey? What kicked you off to learning? Like, you do a lot of research, and you read a lot of tomes and a lot of the Bible as well. You get a lot of your information from there. So what started you down all of this research?
Oh wow, yeah, that's very complex. It was a series of events that happened in my life. I was born into it. That was one of the things. So my family's indoctrinated me into the Bible when I was very young, but they also taught me the darker portions of theology that a lot of Christians shied away from. To understand that is really to understand the true scope of the world of what you're dealing with. My father never shied away from that. So even when I was a young boy, I was hearing some terrifying stories. But what really opened my eyes was seeing it. Seeing is believing. One day, there was a huge blizzard that came through North Carolina. Yeah, I mean, it was white gray as far as the eye could see. We were driving home from karate practice. We've done this drive a million times. You're just in autopilot, and then suddenly we see something. See a deer, running across the street. And at the time, there was nothing, because you see that all the time. You see whitetail and all that stuff from there. And this area was very rural. This was like a 2-lane road, very thin roads. As we're driving down, we see what's chasing this deer. This deer looks like it's running for its life. And it was chasing this deer is moving extremely fast, terrifyingly fast. When I first saw it out of my mind, it didn't look like something realistic at first, and it's really hard for me to accept that into my reality. And no matter how many times you see something in movies, or you read things, and you see it, it's more terrifying in real life. It kind of forces you to pause and really really question what you're looking at. And like you said, when you were dealing with sleep paralysis, it felt like 30 seconds, right?
Well, it was probably about 30 seconds, but it felt
Yeah.
like an hour probably.
Yeah. So you have that moment when you're really questioning everything. It feels like forever, like time is sitting still. And that happened to me. I saw it, and it came sprinting out of the wilderness, and it was wearing a jacket. It was a man. His only thing he was wearing was a jacket. It was covered in filth, super pale. His figures were completely black from frostbite. Lips were gone, absolutely gone. As he chewed them off or something. They were gone. Also, his teeth and dry gums, and this crazed look on his face. And all most of the hair was just gone from his body, except for like mud riddled strands that were on his head. And he looked emaciated. So a lot of questions were running through my mind at the time, and still run through my mind. I see this individual. How is this emaciated individual running faster than an Olympic sprinter? And when we saw this, and my father, he just hit the brakes, and it turned and looked at our van, and it released this god awful howl, scream right toward us, and it shook me to the core. There was something else happening to us at that moment. At that moment, it wasn't just us being yelled at. It felt like it was piercing your soul. And at that moment, I just withered in my chair. And I was looking at this being, this solid black eye staring right at me. Father, and I knew at that second, if there wasn't all that steel and glass between us and that thing, it would have ripped us apart. And then it, like, as fast as it came, it just disappeared, took off into the wilderness like a blur. And I just remember, as I'm describing the story, I just remember time just feeling so slow. It felt like an entire year had passed. It was so terrifying.
It's really amazing to see the power of the brain.
Yeah.
And when things slow down, the amount of detail you can collect. Like you saw its fingers and the lips were eaten away, and you saw the hair. It's something, it's like you get so hyper focused, and it's that fight or flight, right? It's that adrenaline response that your brain retains every possible piece of information. It just collects it and absorbs it, and you see so much more. And I think that also contributes to the feeling of the longevity, like the span of time, because your brain is like seeing all these things and putting it all together. It's gathering more data than it normally would. So I think it's expanding your conception of time. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I think it's like a computer processor. It's
Loading.
It's going so fast. It's loading so much all at once that your perception of time changes.
Yeah, exactly. So it took off. We started driving again. It was a long, quiet silence. Or perhaps that was just more time relativity having its effect on us.
But I think that's also the shock.
Yeah.
Like when something happens like that, and especially if it's the first time that you've encountered something like that, and it's not an everyday normal thing, that's not normal. You don't experience that every day.
Yeah.
Even if you are lucky or unlucky to experience it more than once, like it's still not something you ever get used to. So you are in some form of shock. And I think also you're trying to recover from that adrenaline rush, like you're coming down from a high of that adrenaline rush, you know what I mean? So I think that's what contributes to being excited. Like everyone just sits there just like trying to process what just happened, you know, and like digest it, put it into bite-sized pieces that you can then piece together and be like, what just happened?
Yeah, what just happened?
What just happened?
So we started driving, and after a while, he breaks the silence. My dad is like, "Are you okay?" Yeah. He explains to me there's things out there. I'm sorry you had to learn it like this. And at that moment, I was terrified. I don't think I went to sleep for like, well, I went to sleep, but I don't think I had a good night's rest for like a month on end after that.
Yeah.
And I went home, I think the next day, and I was just ready to learn more about the Bible, ready to crack open my family's whole library and start learning seriously what is out there. Because that was my wake up call. And like the vampire was yours. That was my wake up call. And I found out it was a Wendigo. was going to go. So yeah, I probably would have tore us apart if that was in between us. But just seeing something that terrifying, and like you said, you start to scrutinize what you're thinking. Is this really happening? Is this real? And for the longest time, I was that was always in the back of my mind. I'm more confident than I was when I was younger. I was very unsure about myself. To the point where sometimes I just get off that. I don't want to do this anymore. I just don't think about this anymore. And then it always seems like there's someone who needs help, and then I have to open up a toolbox and go right back to helping those people. And so
I think you and I are both the type of people that we feel that we have a responsibility. If we have the knowledge and the ability to help people and to also teach people, like, this is how you take care of yourself. I think we're both the type of people who are like, this is now our responsibility. I don't think we would have ever chosen this path for ourselves, either of us. Like, this is not something we want to do. It's something that we are literally called to do. It's to a point where if we hear somebody or because this is the first time I'm doing something like this. This is the first time I'm putting myself out there as far as like doing videos and for like mass population or whatever.
I would have started quiet about.
Yes, at least work off of word of mouth.
Yeah.
And it goes around. People spread my name around and they're like, this is who you want. This is who you need to reach out to all the time, like weekly. And so I think this is finally me coming out, I guess, officially. But because it literally felt like just a calling, like anytime somebody would just reach out, they're like, oh, I got your name from so-and-so. Oh, they said you helped them when this happened. And every time it's like, okay, let's do this. We got to help. We gotta help this person, this family, because their stories are devastating and they're so sad. And you're like, oh, this family is suffering. We have to help. I can't turn this away.
Especially you being in that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I can't turn them away.
Yeah. So that story is written on my Instagram as the short story, The Black Eyes. So if anyone wants to read The Black Eyes, it's on my Instagram page, or just feel free to reach out to me if you can't find it. I'm more than happy to send it to you. It's written in short story form, but page and a half long. And I heard it's one of my better short stories if you're ever interested in reading that. But it also give you a taste of my writing. But yeah, that was my eye opener. And after that, I started taking things more seriously in the family business. And that was a very, very long time ago. It feels like ages ago.
So just to follow up, you said that this was like from your family, like your family you were brought up in the family. So after this encounter, it was your dad that mainly came with this background, that he was knowledgeable, or was it other people in your family?
Mostly grandmother and all.
On your dad's side, or is this on the side?
Dad's side.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, like, you said you started diving into the Bible and reading tomes and stuff like that. Did your dad help you at all, or was this all you had to self-taught?
He guided me, I would say, until I was about in my teens, and I just kind of went off and explored on my own.
Okay. But so he helped you? I would be curious to hear those conversations. Like, how did he break you into this? Like, how did he ease you into it?
Teach you about the arcane and preparation.
Yeah.
Understanding that it's family business, after a while. For me, it feels normal.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds more glamorous than it actually is. A lot of it's just meditating, prayer, and then learning different types of meditations and reflections and things like that. I mean, being an apprentice was boring. It wasn't exciting at all. A lot of it was meditating, and a lot of it was cracking open books, especially the Bible, and learning that way. So I don't want it to seem too so glamorous, and then people find it's actually just a lot of footwork. Most magicians are just nerds.
Yeah. So we kind of both came with the same kind of background as far as like we learned from our family.
Yeah.
So this is our normal every day, literally. So we've had some people send in questions for us to answer on our Discord or email. They've reached out to us. I think we have like 2 questions we can get to today. So the first one comes from the Wording Jabberwock from our Discord channel.
Oh, hey, Jabberwock. Thank you so much for your question. Really appreciate it.
How does the idea of ghosts fit in with what God tells us about the afterlife and going to heaven.
Oh, that's a good question. Real good question. You want to take this one, or?
You go first, because you're very much about the Bible and me not so much. So,
Well, the Bible says a lot of things about the dead having no voice, but there's also a lot of books that talk about a lot of books in the Bible, especially books that have been removed from the Bible, that talk about ghosts. The most common nomenclature of ghosts and apparitions usually comes from souls or spirits that are very restless and they don't want to move on. A lot of it is also psychic reflections. So perhaps there was a home, but there was a violent, we'll say a violent father, constantly beating his children and causing mayhem. And I mean, we're talking serious beatings, like maybe he comes home drunk and just starts throwing punches and delivering black eyes and broken eye sockets and, WrestleMania. It's WrestleMania happening and they're not in a glamorous, fun way. Yeah, that can cause a lot of pain and suffering, and all human beings to some extent are psychic. So this isn't something that's special. Like once you make this commonplace, you start to understand it a lot better. Some people have more of a talent than others, kind of like picking up a basketball. Everyone can learn the basics, but some people are just naturally gifted. And you have your Michael Jordans and your Kobe's, and then you just have your run-of-the-mill individuals who are playing pickup games at the local LA Fitness. And that means everyone can do it. Everyone can have fun. Everyone can do it and learn, but some people are just more gifted than oths. And that either comes through other prowess, which is something you're simply born into, or natural acuity, which is learning, developing the skills through intense study, meditation, focus, arcane preparatory methods. There's psychic emanations that happen, and they cling to the etheric layers. Sometimes people could be witnessing that when they're dealing with apparitions, ghosts, and stuff like that. And for example, like those children that I followed could possibly still be alive if they move out of the house. Someone else purchased a home now, and now they are witnessing or hearing. In some sense, they're dealing with these psychic disturbances, and they might consider it a ghost. Okay, but it's not technically not a ghost; it's a psychic disturbance, like an echo psychic disturbance. And a lot of these are reported as ghost events, but they're actually not. It's just something that the other layer has recorded. And the other layers are very tricky. I've studied them for many, many decades, and I still don't have a complete grasp on it. I don't think anyone does, short of God. So in that sense, that's the most common nomenclature of ghosts. Some ghosts are individuals who don't want to move on. Free will is such a potent thing. It's one of the gifts that God's given us. Free will is a constant factor. You always have a choice. So when certain individuals pass away, there are attachments, there are things that are forcing them to keep their mind and spirit here. And that's why the Lord Jesus Christ warns us to let go of this world, to not become too attached to the things that happen in this world, and to move on to paradise with Him, rather than being stuck here in the material world, because you could be stuck in a state of constant agony, constant stress, constant worry. And if you don't end up either finishing what you started here or learning to let go. I mean, it was a very important thing to do, learning to let go.
yeah, to add on to that, I think the things that I've encountered, there's a few different things. I've encountered spirits who weren't even dead. I've encountered spirits who were in coma, of a living person who was in a coma, and they wanted to say goodbye to their loved ones.
This is through your mediumship, right?
Yeah, and then I've encountered spirits that again they have unfinished business, and then I've encountered spirits that they actively don't want to cross over, because these are these were not good people in life. And they are afraid that they're not going to go to heaven. They're afraid they're going to go to hell. So they don't they're purposely avoiding it in every way possible of moving on. They are scared of what's on the other side. When you're in spirit form and you haven't moved on, you are not at peace. You still have all of your hopes and fears and all of your emotional baggage from life. It's all still with you. You haven't you haven't let it go. Like you said, you haven't released it, you haven't let it go, you haven't moved on. So you still carry those fears, like what's on the other side. Like I was not a good person. I committed some bad crimes. I am not going to heaven. So where am I going? I don't want to go. That's what I've encountered. I've also encountered some serious events where we're talking like life and death events have happened to living people, where spirit has come to me to tell me, to warn them that something was coming. It hadn't happened yet. Spirit had moved on. That spirit was in heaven, but they still made the connection. I don't think it's not like they stepped out of heaven. You can, in spirit form, you're just energy, you're a frequency. You can be everywhere all at once. You are connected to the universal conscious. You are one with everything.
Yep.
So even if you're in heaven, you can still be everywhere. So in that moment, that spirit came to me to reach out to her daughter to warn her that something was about to happen. And so, yes, she wasn't her. She had moved on, but she came back to communicate that it was a life or death situation. And thankfully, everything was. It was a bad situation, but it all worked out.
Bible also has stories of ancestors coming forth and helping newer generation. A few stories about that. One time, voluntarily to the crash religion of Endor with Saul, but there's a few other cases. I can't think of them off the top of my head where authors come and speak to people and say, "Hey, this is what the Lord wants." Yeah, visions, prophets, and things like that. Well, some of those might be demonic manipulations.
So thank you, Jeff Rock, for that question.
Great question.
And now this one, which to remain anonymous. How old is Guy Quintero really? Are you a vampire?
I am, for the record. Okay, here it is. Guys, want me to be honest? Here it goes. I'm 125 years old.
So you are a vampire.
Just kidding. I don't tell my real age because it is very important for people not to know your birthday, and people will figure it out if you give them enough clues. So,
all right. Well, thank you for that question. Okay, so we have a few announcements, just so that people know what's going on with us. New episodes will be every second and fourth Wednesday.
Okay.
So that is our schedule. So right now we're going to be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and hopefully everywhere else where people get their podcasts from. So tune in, however, wherever you prefer to get your podcasts at.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help.
Yeah.
That's our primary goal, is to help people and to get this dialogue going. And also, if you don't even ask questions, perhaps there is a subject you want us to talk about or something you want to contribute. We're more than happy to open our ears and listen to that too as well.
Yep. Which brings me to the next thing. Join the discussion on our Discord. Oh, I think it's Guy Quintero and the Veil Between. I think that's literally the name of it. But we'll put the invite link in, and join your fellow veiled seekers, and chat with other people just like you that are into the same thing. Leave questions for us. We have a section on there to leave questions. You guys can chat amongst each other, share your stories, or share just a sort of like fictional stories, or stories that you've heard from other people, like encounters from other people. Doesn't have to be your own personal. I know that is very personal. So if that's not something you want to do, that's totally fine. And also you can suggest topics. Like if there's something that you really want us to talk about or discuss, again, or you have questions on a specific thing, you can do all that there. And we also have every year with the Guy Quintero's author profile and everything, we do a Halloween contest. So this time it's like got to be part of the podcast. We host on Discord. If you want to participate in the Halloween contest, you have to go to Discord. So get on Discord. This year's Halloween contest is the spookiest campfire story. So again, it can be a personal encounter. It can be a fiction creepypasta, like just something to make up. And the community will vote for their favorite. And the winner will be announced on Halloween. I'm so excited. I love stories. I love creepypasta.
Everyone has such great stories, you know.
Yeah.
That's when I talk to people, there's always is that everyone has that one good ghost story.
Yeah.
It's a lot of one.
But I never went to camp. I never went to summer camp. So I never got to do flashlight.
Oh, we did all the time, the service.
Oh my God. I feel like I missed out. Anyway, so I really want to do this. Okay. So then next we have created a book club on Fable. Same name as the podcast. It's so that we all can dive in even deeper because we're already running. This episode is very long, our inaugural episode, but we had a lot to talk about. But this is the conversations. We're gonna learn together. We're gonna
fun
about
too.
things. Yeah, and this is our first book. So this is this month's book, Vampires: The Occult Truth by Constantinos. And we're going to be starting that pretty much as soon as this goes live. So jump on it. It's on Fable. Then again, I'll have the links in the description and in the show notes. But the book club is called The Veil Between Book Club on Fable. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And as you leave the veil between, be careful. Shadows have a way of following home.